In Paraguay, hundreds of people protested in front of Congress against pension reform. In Gaza, Palestinians continue to face relentless Israeli bombardments. It's entered its third month. European Union leaders met with President Xi Jinping in Beijing for the first face-to-face summit between the bloc and the Asian country. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Rosabal from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Paraguay, hundreds of people protested in front of the Congress against pension reform. Demonstrators marched under the slogan, "The funds must not be touched." According to the government of President Santiago Peña, the law simply seeks to create a supervisory body. However, some opponents warned that it is a government maneuver to use retirement and pension funds. In the middle of the session, the Archbishop of Asunción issued a communique asking parliamentarians to postpone the bill so that the society can participate in the debate. Peru's President Fujimori leaves prison after pardon reinstated. Former Peruvian President Alberto Fujimori was freed from prison on Wednesday after a court reinstated the pardon of a 25-year sentence for crimes against humanity. Fujimori, who served from 1990 to 2000 and is now in poor health, led the Barbadillo prison in Lima and was greeted by his daughter Keiko and son Kenji. Fujimori was sent to prison in 2009 over massacres committed by Army death squads in 1991 and 1992, in which 25 people, including a child, were killed in supposed anti-terrorist operations. On Tuesday, the Constitutional Court ordered him, framed for humanitarian reasons, reinstated the pardon that was first granted in 2017, but revoked by the Supreme Court 2 years later. Colombian and Brazilian security forces have jointly dismantled 19 illegal gold mine sites in the Amazon rainforest. According to the police statements, the multinational operation represents a milestone in the fight against the illegal exploitation of mining deposits and the contamination of a mega-diverse region. Environmental authorities, Interpol, Air Force, and police from both countries worked for 3 days in the operation, which was called Baloca Grande. The police said that the targeted deposit had the capacity to extract 23 kilograms of gold per month, valued at more than 6,000 million pesos, equivalent to $1.5 million, and this money was used to buy weapons and explosives for one of the largest criminal organizations in Brazil, the Family of the North. In El Salvador, members of the Congress approved on the evening of 6 December a new extension of the emergency regime to allow the authorities to continue fighting the country's gang remnants. The 30-day extension was approved with 66 votes in favor, 6 against, and 5 abstentions, and despite voices against the measure, which they consider an open door to abuses by the authorities, the government considers it necessary to maintain security. According to the government figures, the measure has led to the arrest of more than 74,000 suspected gang members, of whom at least 7,000 were proven innocent. The National Assembly of Venezuela approved in first discussion the bill presented by the President Nicolás Maduro in defense of the Essequibo territory. During this Wednesday's ordinary session, the plenary of the legislature discusses the draft to Guyana law for the protection of the Guyana Essequibo. The legal text for the defense of the sovereignty of the Essequibo territory was presented by Deputy Diosdado Cabello, who pointed out the importance of the initiative formulated by the popular consultation on December 3rd in Venezuela. Cabello assured that what follows after the people voted yes, it is to enforce a mandate to defend national sovereignty.
6. The new map of Venezuela should be published and disseminated in all schools, high schools and universities in the country. What a beautiful map.
Aquí se ve, no se ve. ¿Quién no lo ve? Aquí, compadre. ¿No? Aquí, hermano, pero aléjalo más para que se vea, porque queremos que se vea nuestra Guayana Esequiba completica, ¿ves? Que no quede nada.
Because the Guyana Essequiba belongs to Venezuela. There is no doubt. Here it is.
No hay dudas. Aquí está.
During a session at the National Assembly of Venezuela, Deputy Diosdado Cabello clarified that the result of the consultative referendums are binding.
The first thing that came to their minds, as they have no way to challenge the numbers, the first thing that came to their minds was to say that it was non-binding. Non-binding. That was the argument they were using. Let me read Article 70 of our Constitution. These are means of participation and protagonism by the people in the exercise of their sovereignty, in the political sphere, the election of public offices, the referendum, the popular consultation, the revocation of mandates, the legislative, constitutional, and constituent initiatives, the open town hall, and citizens' assemblies, whose decisions shall be of a binding nature.
Venezuela Minister of Defense Vladimir Padrino announced on the X account on Wednesday that the implementation of the latest measures to comply with the people's mandate on the Esquiva.
Buenas noches, Venezuela.
Good night, Venezuela. 6 December, 20 hours with 29 minutes for my watch. Meeting here with the Mr. General-in-Chief, Domingo Hernandez Lares, Strategic Operational Commander of the Bolivarian National Armed Forces. And I have here a great friend, a great brother, a great soldier, Major General Alexis Rodriguez Cabello, former Commander General of the Army, sole authority designated by my Commander-in-Chief for Guyana Esquiva, sharing and articulating from now on, so that the mandate of the people is fulfilled as soon as possible, with all the public policies towards the territory of Guyana Esquiva, and we will be working very closely, single authority and Bolivarian National Armed Force, with all its logistic and human potential that is already deployed in this sector. So well, there is no rest, there is no recess. Everyone working for our Guyana Esquiva, the son of Venezuela, is born in the Esquivo. We will win.
Nace en el Esequibo, venceremos.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you find us in different formats, new days, and more. Our study is coming up, stay with us. Welcome back. Palestinians in Gaza continue to face relentless Israeli bombardments as the siege the Strip enters its third month. Israel continues to escalate its attacks, particularly in the southern areas, including the border city of Rafah. Airstrikes have killed and injured numerous Palestinians in various locations across the Gaza Strip. In face of these events, UN Chief Guterres have invoked, for the first time since he came to this position, the rarely used Article 99 to force the Security Council to address war in Gaza. Meanwhile, the humanitarian situation worsens as the local health ministry informed Gaza City's Ali Arab Hospital was at full capacity and struggling to keep up with the wounded. For its part, the Al-Shifa Hospital, the largest in the Strip, has been reduced to administering first and clinical care only. At least 16,248 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza since October 7th, and only 350 were killed in the last 24 hours. At least 17 Palestinian citizens were killed and dozens wounded after an attack on a house in the Maghazi refugee camp in central Gaza. According to Wafa news agency, the house attacked in the early hours of the morning was the residence of the Al-Mashi family, which was home to several displaced families. A similar attack was repeated in the Shabura refugee camp, where 6 other Palestinians were killed. Most of the missiles launched by the Israeli occupation forces in the last few days are targeted in the southern city of Khan Yunis, where one of the few hospitals available in the region is still operating. The Palestinian city of Khan Yunis is now divided into two separate towns as the Israeli occupation army continues its large-scale incursion into the Gaza Strip, leaving hundreds of people dead and wounded lying in the streets without any medical care. For more details, our correspondent Noha Racine reports directly from the Gaza Strip.
We were talking about the scenario, what happened in Gaza, in northern Gaza, will happen again in southern Gaza, specifically in the city of Khan Yunis. And yes, it is happening now. The Israeli tanks and Israeli forces have encircled the eastern side of Khan Yunis city. Khan Yunis is the second Palestinian city here in the coastal enclave, and it is separated to two parts. We have eastern Khan Yunis, which contains three big areas, three big neighborhoods. Khuza'a, Abasan and Bani Sahila, and then we have West Khan Yunis, and still some areas there are under the control of Palestinians where they also can move freely from southern Gaza to middle Gaza, to Deir al-Balah and other towns in middle Gaza. So yes, now the Israeli tanks has encircled the eastern Khan Yunis. Doctors and paramedics actually are talking about hundreds of people that were killed during the overnight and also the early hours of this morning. However, the paramedics and the civil forces until now couldn't reach them because of the intensive Israeli fire there in eastern Khan Yunis. According to the Palestinian militant fighter group Hamas, they destroyed more than 36 Israeli machines, talking about tanks and other machines that they are using during the incursion. And they said that they killed 6 Israeli soldiers. However, no confirmation still from the Israeli side. But we do know that the Al-Qassam brigades are going through intensive battles with the Israeli forces here on the ground, and specifically in the Palestinian city of Khan Yunis, as now the Israeli incursion starts and continues there. Noor Harazin, TeleSUR, Gaza.
In Palestine, 22 members of the family of an Al Jazeera correspondent were killed by Israeli occupation forces. Nephews, parents, siblings, and brothers and sisters-in-law of the Qatari media network correspondent Mohamed Al-Sharif were killed during an airstrike in the Jabalia refugee camp north of the Palestinian city of Gaza. Palestinian civil defense teams were reportedly unable to gain access to the bodies. In a statement, Al Jazeera denounced the Israeli attack and said it will take all legal steps to prosecute all those responsible for this crime. The media network further called on the international community and press freedom organizations to do their most to put an immediate end to these massacres and ensure swift justice for the families of martyrs and innocent victims. In Syria, activities of solidarity with the Palestinian people in the face of the Israeli aggression against the Gaza Strip are continuing. Official and popular acts that demonstrate the failure of the terrorists and the Western financiers to make Damascus renounce its firm stance in defense of the just Palestinian cause. Let's see.
Officials, partisans, social, cultural, and religious representatives, and leaders of numerous Palestinian forces gather at the Al-Sad National Library in Damascus to demand an end to what they call Israel's war of extermination against Gaza, condemn Washington's support for Tel Aviv, and reaffirm their firm support for the just Palestinian cause.
We condemned this brutal aggression, and we condemned the role played by the United States in this war, since its role beyond support and backing places the United States in the position of a compliance and even more in the position of the owner of the Zionist project, and in the face of this position we ratify the support to the Palestinian resistance and its right to defend the defenseless Palestinian people.
The coalition of resistance and the brave Palestinians, whom we greet from the bottom of our hearts and praise for their patience and steadfastness, will bring about a new dawn, not only for Palestine but for all humanity, the dawn of dignity, sovereignty, and respect for the humanism of human beings.
At the same time, representatives of the Palestinians living in Syria gather in the Al Yarmouk refugee camp south of Damascus to pay tribute to the souls of their brothers killed by Israeli troops in Gaza, to condemn the silence of the world community in the face of Israeli war crimes, and to express their support for the resistance against the Zionist occupation.
We stand firm in defense of our cause and support the Palestinian resistance and our brothers in Gaza, and we are here to pay tribute to the souls of the martyrs and the murdered children, and to express our willingness to lift fighters from Al Yarmouk camp to Palestine, as we are one people and we share the same pain inside and outside the occupied territories.
Meanwhile, members of the teachers' union in the coastal city of Latakia demonstrated in condemnation of Israeli crimes against their Palestinian colleagues and their families in Gaza, a war of extermination which they claim will fail to achieve its objectives of forcibly displacing the Palestinians and will conclude with a stunning defeat for the Zionist invaders.
TeleSUR, Damasco, Syria.
We have a second job break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with TeleSUR. Final job break, don't go away. Welcome back. In the U.S., 3 people were killed and another critically injured in a shooting at Las Vegas University on Wednesday, police said, with the suspect also dead. Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department wrote on social media that according to the investigators at the scene, we have 3 deceased victims and 1 additional victim in critical condition at a local hospital. Police said to have responded to calls around midday and indicated that officers had engaged the suspect on the campus, where gunshots ran out in at least 2 locations. Television footage showed police military-style vehicles moving near containment lines, as well as dozens of young people being escorted through them. 2 hours after the shooting erupted, the university continued to urge people to shelter in place, saying that police were working to clear each building in turn. Universities in the area were shuttered for the rest of the day, and flights into the nearby international airports were halted. In the United States, the Senate failed to reach an agreement on additional aid to countries of Ukraine and Israel. House Republican senators rejected a bill to provide $60 billion to help Ukraine maintain pressure on Russia during the winter months and about $10 billion to Israel in its conflicts with the militant Palestinian resistance movement, Hamas. With 49 votes in favor and 51 against, the proposal failed to reach the 60-vote threshold needed for proper passage. The initiative was also rejected for not including immigrant reforms, arguing that the need to reduce the flow of illegal immigrants crossing the Mexican-U.S. border remains. In Russia, the upper house of the Russian parliament on Thursday set the date for the next Russian presidential election. During the meeting on Thursday, the Federation cancelled Russia's presidential election for March 17, 2024. In view of the decision, the chairwoman of the Russian Central Election Commission, Ella Pamfilova, thanked the decision of the Federation Council and stressed that the future elections will ensure the strengthening of the country's development. Similarly, the chairwoman of the Russian Senate, Valentina Matvienko, stated that this decision marks the beginning of the presidential election campaign. Russian President Vladimir Putin and Saudi Arabian Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman held bilateral talks with the delegations in the Saudi capital Riyadh. The meeting comes after falling oil prices despite a pledge by the OPEC+, which groups the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and allies led by Russia to further cut output. In introductory remarks shown on Russian television, Putin thanked the Crown Prince for this invitation, saying he had originally expected the Saudi leader to visit Moscow, but there were changes to plans. Putin's delegation included top oil, economy, foreign affairs, space, and nuclear energy officials, as well as business leaders. The Russian president visited earlier the United Arab Emirates, where he met President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan.
We have stable and very good ties in the field of political interaction, in the economic sphere, and in the humanitarian fields. We had been expecting you in Moscow. I know that circumstances have caused adjustment to these plans, but as I said, nothing can prevent the development of our friendly relations.
On the other hand, Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed Salman reaffirmed the solid bilateral relations between his country and Russia and its positive results during the past 7 years.
We share common interests and work together on many issues, on many topics, in the interest of Russia and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, as well as the Middle East and the world. During the past 7 years, we have achieved a lot in our bilateral cooperation.
European Union leaders met with President Xi Jinping in Beijing during the first face-to-face summit between the bloc and the Asian country. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen urged Chinese President Xi Jinping to responsibly address and manage the concerns that China and the EU have when their interests do not coincide. He also said Brussels and Beijing have found solutions to global challenges and established a just and lasting peace in the conflicts in Ukraine and the Middle East. The EU attaches great importance to its relationship with China, given the enormous trade and investment interests between the two. The head of the United Nations Climate Conference, Sultan Al-Jaber, pressed countries on Wednesday to strive for a common ground and reach a historic deal by early next week. The COP28 president set the ambitious goal of having a deal in place by 11 a.m. local time on Tuesday, the last official date of the conference. Al-Jaber urged nearly 200 nations presented at the meeting to work with a spirit of compromise, step out of their comfort zones, and find common grounds to deliver a high ambition and balanced outcome. COP28 kicked off last week with the landmark launch of a loss and damage and fund for nations devastated by the climate change. However, the first week of negotiations ended on Wednesday with delegations unable to produce an updated version of a draft agreement that was published the previous day. The text includes languages on phasing out fossil fuels, which the European Union, the United States, allied nations, and African countries support. And we have come to the end of this brief, but before saying goodbye, we want to thank a Caribbean audience, especially the audience of Trinidad and Tobago. We are pleased to share our newscasts and contribute to provide an alternative news source of the latest world events. And you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net, and join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Alena Rosabal. Thank you for watching.